Good morning. I am going to show you today how to make Malteser cake, which is a real family favourite. Most of the time for any of my nieces and nephews, when it's their birthday, that's all they want. They don't want a normal birthday cake, they just want Malteser cake. So the ingredients to start off, now I've slightly adapted this recipe. So the old recipe was equal amounts of butter and dark chocolate, so 8 ounces, which is about 200 grams, 225. And then after that you add in your tin of condensed milk. So what I've done so far, and I'll just start melting this gently, but as I said, I've changed the recipe. So in here is 8 ounces of dark chocolate, just really cheap dark chocolate, doesn't need to be anything fancy. I pay 30 pence in Lidl for a bar, so you need 2 bars, 100 grams, so it's 200 grams dark chocolate. But then I put in 7 ounces of butter. It used to be 8 ounces of butter, I've changed it to 7 because I found it was a little bit too much grease. But the other reason I've changed it is because the old recipe takes 8 ounces of raisins. Now I've taken the raisins out because most of my family don't like them. So what I do instead is I put a little bit less butter in because I think the raisins used to absorb some of the liquid or the sort of fat. So what I've done is I'll just switch this on to like number 2, just going to melt it really slowly. So the ingredients, as I said, you've got 8 ounces or 200 grams of dark chocolate and then 7 ounces, so that'll be about 175 grams of butter. Now you have to use butter, you can't use margarine or stork or whatever, because the butter, you melt it and then once it goes hard again, it goes hard, whereas margarine stuff's too soft, so it doesn't really work. So I'm going to melt my butter and my dark chocolate really gently. Don't want it to burn or go a bit funny. So I'll just do that, just give it a little stir. It might take a wee while to melt. Sometimes I'll just leave it on a really, really low heat, like a number 1, and almost forget about it. But obviously I would only do that. I'm turning it up a little bit higher just now to number 2 because I'm standing here, so I'm going to know if it's starting to burn. Once you've melted all that, gently, slowly, you then add in your tin of condensed milk. Okay, so this is just the Lidl one. You can get any type. The old recipe that I used to use in the old days was 4 ounces of butter, 4 ounces of dark chocolate, and then you'd use a small tin. But you don't get the small tins anymore, so you have to use, you have to make the bigger mixture. Now the other ingredients, so once you've melted your butter and chocolate together gently, you add in your condensed milk, and then you mix it up really well. Take it off the heat, you don't need it warmed up anymore at all. You take it off the heat, and then you add in 1 packet of digestives, which are crushed. You can do it by hand, or you can do it in a food processor. I'm very lazy, so I'll do it in a food processor. So you crush these up. Now, because I've removed the raisins from the recipe, there might not be enough dry ingredients. So what I also do is add in, usually it's about a handful of oats. So what I'll do is I'll show you what it looks like, what the mixture looks like, and then you'll know whether you need to add in a few more oats or not. If it looks kind of greasy, and if you leave it for a second and then you see some of the melted butter fat like almost come up to the top of the mixture, because it's obviously lighter, so it comes up to the top, just add in more oats, but just like a small handful at a time. You don't want I mean, the thing is that your mixture could become quite dry, but it doesn't really matter, it's just going to solidify more quickly. Okay, so I'll just give this a stir, make sure everything's sort of melting. I mean, you could cut everything up. I always break up the chocolate. I don't usually break up the butter, but the butter melts pretty quickly. You could break it up into smaller pieces. I don't really bother. So what I'm going to do while that is melting, I'm just going to crush my biscuit. So I'll pause you just now because it's quite loud, the noise of the food processor. Okay, so I've crushed all my digestives. When you do it in the food processor, it gets very fine, which is fine. I think when you've got kids, if you've got kids, they quite enjoy bashing up the digestives, so you can put them into like a bag or something, or leave them in the packet, but normally the packet will burst at some point when it's getting bashed with a rolling pin or wooden spoon or something like that. So you can do it by hand, and if I'm somewhere else in someone else's house making it and they haven't got a food processor, it's fine. I'm quite happy to do it by hand. I'm just kind of, I like having it quite fine. Now, the other thing that I've done to what I would consider improve this recipe, so again, you've got your butter, your dark chocolate, your condensed milk, quite a lot of calories. The next thing I add, once I've added in my digestives, I actually add in a couple of crunchy bars. So what I do is I just get like a wooden spoon, and I'll just kind of like use the wooden spoon, and I'll bash it like that, and then I'll turn it over and I'll bash it like that, and then I'll turn it to the side and I'll bash it like that, and then bash it like that, and that should be it, kind of well broken up. I'm not going to put it in the food processor because all the honeycomb gets stuck to the sides and I don't want to waste any honeycomb. So I'll just do it quickly. If you do it not too hard, then that's all kind of broken, but the packaging's still intact. So I'll do my other one. So basically what I did was I replaced raisins with crunchy bars, which is really unhealthy. And then the last ingredient that will go in is the Maltesers. Now, I bought a big box of Maltesers last time, and I used half of it. You can buy one, like the big pack, not too big, but the packet is like £1 or 1.25 or whatever. That's enough. And the size of dish I use noisy. I'll use this size, so what I would call a kind of lasagna dish size, or A4. That's the size. Okay, shut the cupboard. So yeah, that's the size that I'll use. Now this is just about melted. There's only a tiny bit of butter still in there, so I'm going to turn the heat off because you've always got a bit of residual heat. So I know there's enough heat in there to melt the last couple of bits. So I'll just do that while I'm waiting for that last little bit. I'm going to open my tin of condensed milk. As a child, oh my god, I used to love this stuff. You just lick it out of the tin. I mean, it's just pure. So here you go. I'm just pouring it straight in like that. It's so sticky. Ugh. Ugh. Normally I'd take the lid off, but I'd leave the lid slightly on so I don't have to touch it because it's really sticky. So yeah, your kids, if you've got kids, they will love the taste of this. It's so sweet. Oh my god. Okay. Sticky fingers. Right, so I've added in my, can't really see it, it's all gone right in. So it's quite dark, the mixture. Once you start mixing in the condensed milk, it goes a little bit lighter. So I'm just giving it a really good mix because you want it to be really well incorporated before you start adding in your other ingredients. Okay, so just push it down from the sides. It's looking good. Okay, so I've got nice smooth chocolatey mixture there. Delicious. So I'm just going to dump these straight in. Okay. Right, so I'm not going to add my crunchy in just yet because what I want to do first is, oh, I've just found a big chunk of biscuit, so that's great. Just break it up a little bit smaller. It's nice sometimes to have little chunks of biscuit. Some people like that, you know, would prefer it like that. This is basically, I think it's like tiffin, you know, if you ever get tiffin. It's like tiffin, but instead of cherries, it's got Maltesers in it, which is definitely an improvement as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so now this mixture is quite runny, okay? So I don't know if you can see that it's kind of, you know, it's falling down quite easily. So it's definitely not thick or not sort of like dry enough for it to set very well. So before I add in my crunchies, just get this spoon and I'll just put like, let's say it's probably about 2 tablespoons worth I've just put in. I just add kind of like a little bit at a time. I don't put too much in because you never really know how much you're going to need. I've never actually measured it, and it always seems to turn out different, a little bit different. So yeah, so I've mixed that in quite well, but it's still quite easy to mix, right? And it's kind of falling off. So I'm just going to put another spoonful in of oats. Okay. Just give that a good mix. Okay, that looks pretty good. So the next thing I'm going to do is just just put in my crunchies. So there you go. Just pour it in. If you get any bits that are really big, you can break them up a little bit with the wooden spoon. So it's another crunchy bar. So just give it a good mix. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is get some greaseproof paper. So I want to put this into my tin just so that I can lift it out later. You could always like grease it and stuff, but I just prefer using this. So I just lay it. I'm just going to put it into the tray. Okay, and then I'm just going to dump the whole thing into the middle. Now normally I would probably quite enjoy licking the spoon, but it's too early for me to have breakfast, to have chocolate. So I'm just going to use my palette knife to scrape the rest of it off the spoon. Now I might actually move the phone down so you can see what I'm doing here. Right, so I've taken all the mixture off the spoon. Let's see if it works down here. Okay, well that's good. Okay, so I'm just going to flatten it all out. I'll just try and get it to all the 4 corners of the thing, but you can also, when you put the Maltesers in, you can use them to sort of flatten out bits as well. And then I get my palette knife and sort of flatten it across the top as well. My reason for that is that once you've finished putting it, you put the Maltesers in, which I'll do in a sec, and then you stick it in the fridge to set, and then once it's set you then cover it with chocolate. Now the original recipe said 10 ounces of chocolate. That's loads. So is it 10 ounces? Yeah, so that's like 2.5 of those cheap little bars that I get. So I just use 1 bar and just spread it really thinly across the top because there's quite a lot going on in this cake already. It's up to you. You know, you could cover it. You do cover it with dark chocolate because if there's any, if you do it with like milk chocolate, it's just so sweet. It's like even if you make the recipe with milk chocolate instead of dark chocolate, it's really sweet, and I love sweet, but it's almost too much for me. So you'll see I'm just placing the Maltesers all the way along, you know, nice good rows, good even spread. You want to think about it as if you cut it into small pieces, you want everybody to get a Malteser, okay? So I'm going to carry on doing that, basically put all the Maltesers in, and then stick it in the fridge to set, and then put melted chocolate on the top and leave it in the fridge. I believe you can freeze this, although I've never done that because it never lasts long enough to need frozen. I'm making this today because I'm going to see some of my family tomorrow, and I'll deliver it to the rest of the teenagers and stuff. So yeah, it's very simple. It's not the cheapest thing to make, but you know, it could last a while. You could, you know, make smaller ones and give them away to people, or just eat it. It probably lasts for a while. I always keep it in the fridge. I don't know if you need to do that because there's so much sugar in it, it probably would never go off, but because there's butter in it, I prefer to make sure it's always in the fridge. Okay, and like I said, I get my chocolate from either Lidl, 30p, Asda, 30p, you know, the smart price, Sainsbury's, Basics, I think. Is it Basics? Something like that. They've got their own, and they're all about 30p. So don't ever buy cooking chocolate. It's a rip-off. You generally don't need it. Okay, so let me see, I've got 3 Maltesers left. Let me see, I'll just try and find a little gap to shove them in, and then whoever gets that slice is going to be really happy. Okay, so that's what it looks like, and then as I said, I'm just going to get my palette knife and just, you don't need to do this, I just do it because if you've got all these little holes where the Maltesers are, all your melted chocolate will just go into them, and then you'll need more melted chocolate to cover it. So if I can cover up all the little holes with the Maltesers in, then my covering of chocolate will go, you know, will spread further, let's say. Okay, so there we go. That's it. So that's basically it. Stick it in the fridge, leave it to set. I mean, I don't even know if you actually need to do that, but I always do that. Leave it to set, cover it with dark chocolate, and that's it, you're ready to go. If you want to make it really fancy, you can put some Maltesers on the top as well, but there's never any left to do that when I make it. Okay, thanks for watching.